Diablo Fanboys tried to defend Diablo 4. I skipped the first almost 5 minutes because we were talking about whether Diablo is an RPG and stuff like this, haters, promos, so I'm going to skip all of this and jump straight into the core. And I will also use the opportunity to talk about the game using my perspective and what I think the game did right and what I think the game did wrong. So let's jump into it.
End game of Diablo 4 when World Tier 2 is the highest you have played. Can someone explain to me why it's okay to post comments on a video that you clearly didn't watch or listen to? I never criticized the end game because I never played it. I criticized everything before it. And if I didn't enjoy what I played up to that point, then I ain't gonna enjoy the end game. If you don't like the dungeons in WoW, there's a pretty good chance you're not gonna like the raids. But here we are today, asking for changes and complaining on something that you have not experienced. Don't publicly stand on your stage and give opinions on stuff you have never experienced. This whole video would be different if he actually got off Tutorial Island. Wait! I was stuck on Tutorial Island? I was playing RuneScape this whole time? This is one of the more baffling yet surprisingly common takes you'll see from Diablo fanboys. Instead of like outright defending the quality of D4's campaign and content up to level 50, they just say, well, that's not the real game. You didn't experience the actual game. Okay.
You know, I think that both sides have right in this particular case. There were so many occasions where I will play a game and at a certain point I will just lose interest or the game wouldn't catch me. I'll say, you know what, this game, I don't get the point of this game. Why people are saying this game is good? I just played, let's say, 5, 6, 10 hours and I didn't get it. And then what I would usually do is I'll go to a forum or it's any type of social media where people are gathered and talking about this game, going to ask, okay, what am I doing wrong? What's the point of this and that? And they're going to explain to me, and then everything is going to come together in my mind and I will realize why the game is good. So in certain situations, I don't know, having impression of the game early is not really the greatest thing, so it is going to be good for you to keep pushing until you reach a point where you actually understand everything. However, if the game was unable to do it itself, so you have to go somewhere else to ask, then probably there's something wrong with the game as well. So I think both sides have, let's say, both sides are kind of right in this particular case.
Okay, well, if that's true, and Diablo 4 does hold the Guinness World Record for longest video game tutorial at a whopping 30 hours, then can I skip that shit? Can I get to the real game that people keep telling me is so awesome?
It's funny to me too. I mean, it's strange to me too. But we talking about practice, man. We're not even talking about the game, the actual game, when it matters. We're talking about practice.
Why do I have to suffer? Why do I have to go through all this bullshit then? Do you guys think this dude knows that he's actually agreeing with?
Actually, that's a fair point. Really, the tutorial, not the tutorial, I'm sorry, the campaign of Diablo 4 is extremely long, and at a certain point it's getting even boring. You have to kill so many bosses in the end of the campaign, especially as a druid. It was crazy annoying. So he has a point. If this thing doesn't matter, why it is so freaking long? So, very good point.
With me in saying that everything leading up to the endgame wasn't that great? Well, he takes it a step further than I do. He's asserting that I haven't even experienced Diablo 4. This isn't even content to him. Why make a video about something you didn't even experience? Oh, cause clickbait. You see what I'm saying? This is pure coke, dude. These people genuinely think Diablo 4's campaign is so boring, uninteresting, and irrelevant to the core of Diablo that in their mind, they don't even consider it to be an experience that the game offers.
And that's fair point because, in a way, fair point because there are players who really don't care about the campaign. All they want to do is to experience the end game. All they want to do is to, I don't know, to finish the hardest content, for instance, Uber Lyric, stuff like this. They don't really care about the campaign. But on the other hand, there are players who actually love the campaign. So the perfect game is a game where it has incredibly good campaign, you know, cinematics between acts such as Diablo 2. Diablo 2 actually nailed it. It was one of the best campaigns ever. I still remember the cinematics, and the cinematics in D4, except for the one with Lilith and Inarius, they weren't really that great. So D2 is still one of the perfect game ever because it has great campaign, great story, great characters, and incredibly good endgame, let's call it that way. So it had something for everybody. That's why so many people still play it.
And yet they're defending it. It's opinions like these that make me want to host a tournament between Pokemon and Diablo fans to see which fan base has lowered their fucking expectations more. I don't know why you guys are trying to outdo each other, but holy god, with takes like these, the Diablo fans are pulling ahead. Dude, even with how down bad people were for Scarlet and Violet, you never saw someone come out with a hot take like, the gyms? The Elite Four? None of that stuff matters in a Pokemon title. That's not the real game. The real game starts at the Battle Tower. If you said that to a Pokemon fan, you would be strangled in your sleep. Guys, we're talking about a campaign that has a story. We're talking about dungeons, side quests,
I mean, listen, we talking about practice. Not a game, not a game, not a game. We talking about practice. Not a game. Not the game that I go out there and die for and play every game like it's my last. Not the game. We talking about practice, man. What are we talking about? Practice? We're talking about practice, man.
All this stuff that you experienced prior to level 50, it's in the game, so it matters. It's part of the experience.
Valid point.
To try and pretend otherwise is just advocating for an objectively worse Diablo game for you and everybody else, and I don't know why anybody would advocate for that unless they're not actually a fan of this series. If you agree with me that everything prior to the endgame is bad, then stop defending it, because you deserve better. Diablo fans.
I'm not trying to rob you. I'm trying to help you.
We'll be secretly going to be playing Season 1. This was clearly made 5 views. Yes, pass me up because your logic is off and I'm a fan, so what? But doesn't change fact? Garbage.
You don't know WAF World War II is stare at liking World War II, then make that video, why dare you?
Again, it's like poetry, so if they rhyme, every stanza kind of rhymes with the last one.
Bro, I hate to burst your bubble, but I ain't gonna be playing Season 1, okay? I'm not going through the world record tutorial again, alright? What I will be playing is Diablo 1 Beelzebub mod, cause holy tits, this shit is fucking awesome. Real quick, I'm gonna recommend this mod for anybody that...
Now, this is another thing that I truly don't understand. I didn't play Diablo 1 ever. I played Diablo 2 a lot as a child. Then I played a little bit of Diablo 3. I played a lot of Immortal for the past 1 year. Then I quit Immortal. Then I focused entirely on G4. But the point is, I would never go back to D2 because it is an amazing game. In my opinion, one of the top 3 best games I ever played. However, just I have the new installment and everything looks better. And still, Diablo 2 is still a great game that I remember. But this is the thing. I played it, I'm done, I moved on. So the only game that I will still play now, 20 years from the date that was released, or let's say close to that date, was Heroes of Might and Magic 3. That is the only game that I still play and enjoy. Every single of the old games are kind of dead to me. They still live in my memory, but that's it. So partially the reason why I'm playing Diablo 4 is Diablo 2. That's without a doubt. But still, I wouldn't go and play D1. I don't understand the people who do that. But I don't judge them. Still, I wouldn't do that. I wouldn't play D1. Sorry.
that wants to play a fun, challenging ARPG. Beelzebub mod has the style and gameplay of Diablo 1, but with all the best innovations from D2. It also restores a bunch of cut content and quests. Let me...
There is another game that I loved as a child. It's Might and Magic 7 and 8, if you have played those games. I wouldn't play them now. I'm sorry. I just saw footage of Might and Magic 8 a couple of months ago. I was like, oh my god, this looks so bad. But still, I cherish the memories when I was playing those games, and I enjoy them, but still I wouldn't do it now. It just feels so outdated, it doesn't give me any satisfaction.
Show you guys one of my favorite parts of it. Look, they added a stash to Diablo 1. Check this out. You get 50 tabs of storage right from the start. But Diablo 4 has a similar storage system, doesn't it?
Okay, this is serious, and I want to talk about it. You know, the things that is the worst with Diablo 4, in my opinion, is the fact that Blizzard is a multi-billion company, and they had previous installments of the genre, right, of the franchise. Diablo 1, 2, 3, also Immortal. Why didn't they get the best out of those and incorporated it in Diablo 4? It makes zero sense. Why the stash is so bad? Once again, a multi-billion-dollar company. And they have all the best players in the world to give them feedback. Woody Joe, for instance, Rax. People like these are going to give you invaluable, basically, feedback, because all they do is play those games. They enjoy those games and they play them like a job. So they have great way of feedback for the current installment, for, let's say, future ideas. They have great way of feedback when it comes to the previous installments of the game. And yet, they gave us the worst stashing system ever. I don't understand that. I really don't understand that, and this is my biggest criticism of G4. Even if you like the game, you have to ask yourselves: can the game be better? And can a video game company like Blizzard, multi-billion company, can they actually do a better game if they wanted to? If they actually invested more into the game, could they do it better? Could they do it much better? And the answer is of course. And this is what drives me crazy. Diablo 4 could have been so much better. At this point, I wouldn't say it's trash. I would rate it 1 to 7, 1 to 10 on the scale 1 to 10. I'll probably rate it 6.5 or 7. It's a good game, however, it has so many ways to become better. And it's the biggest missed opportunity ever. Because again, we're talking about multi-billion company, we're talking about billions of hours of players of feedback from the previous installments, from the current installment, from the alphas, from the beta, stuff like this, and still the game has a lot of brutal problems. For instance, the stash. The stash is the best example because it's horrible. Why the stash in D4 is so much worse than the stash in D1? That's embarrassing. And by the time they created D1, I don't think that they had multi-billion companies, stuff like this. They didn't. Now they do. Now they have, and the end result is worse in certain areas, of course.
Anyways, campaign is easy. Nightmare Dungeons will actually test your build and skill. Diablo shouldn't be judged by its campaign. So I just want to make sure where these takes are coming from. I didn't play much Diablo 3, but from what I'm hearing, that game must have had the worst fucking campaign yet made by mankind. Like, it sounds like it was so horrifically god-awful that it turned part of the fan base off to the idea of a campaign entirely. Like,
it was okay
it actually that bad? Or maybe you guys have spent far too much time in the end game. You've forgotten that there's a beginning and a middle game, that what you're playing at one point had a story. Bro, everyone talks shit about all the different COD campaigns, but one thing we all agreed on was that Black Ops 4 should have had one. Why? If you don't care about anything but the end game, that's fine. But you have to acknowledge that other Diablo fans play these games for different reasons than you. Where is that fabled experience? I replay Diablo games every year. If the campaign is not the core experience, then the game has failed as a Diablo game in my eyes. Nope. You're not supposed to play these games for the campaign. Not allowed. We're shutting the doors on you. This is a gated community. You literally complain the game is too easy, yet when you encounter the first difficulty spike, you stop playing. More like Clown Man. These people don't even know that they're agreeing with me. So we agree that the first difficulty spike happens after you beat the game.
Now this is somewhere where I fundamentally disagree, and probably because I played the Druid early game and I played the entire campaign, everything on worthy of 2, and certain boss fights were painful. For instance, Lilith was painful. By the time I actually killed her with a Storm Strike build without almost any good legendary aspects, it wasn't really that great. Also, the boss on Act 2 was pretty horrible. So I would disagree that every single thing that before the Curator was really easy. I don't think it was. At certain situations, if you don't really have a lot of experience in the genre, you're going to get pissed. Especially with certain classes. I know if I, for instance, picked the Sorcerer, I would have cleared almost everything. But I had difficult experience with certain bosses. They were not like super hard, but they were hard. And in my opinion, campaigns shouldn't be difficult. This is like something that every single player should pass. And I like, actually, this is the main place where I disagree with him. I actually think the campaign was super good. If you want to have better, let's say, better time, faster time, just to clear the campaign fast, you just go for tier 1. If you want to have a little bit of a challenge, go for tier 2. But I don't think that the campaign should be so challenging that you should be, oh my god, you're barely passing the bosses. That shouldn't be the case. The campaign is there so that you can enjoy the the main story, so that you can go to the end and then start to grind, right? The campaign is not there to challenge you all the way. If you want to get challenged, the end game is there for you. At least this is my understanding. I never expect from any game to have super hard campaigns. When it comes to RPGs, of course.
Game, right? That's a problem, dude. That's a problem. You're wearing the clown mask too?
Quite frankly, I don't think that beating G2 on normal was difficult at all. So by this logic, G2 was pretty bad because none of the bosses was partially difficult. Probably the only difficult boss, which I remember when I was playing hardcore in G2, the only difficult boss as a Necromancer was Durio on Act 2. And it wasn't super hard, but she was kind of difficult because she could one-shot you and she charges at you, stuff like this. But I don't remember any difficult boss. There was a Necromancer who was a lot of minions that he would, corpse explosion, stuff like this. And you wouldn't really go there as a hardcore character. Or if you want, you could go there just to challenge, but you don't get anything out of it. It was a side quest, you can skip it. But at the end of the day, I don't think that D2 had a really challenging campaign. I never played D1, I cannot say about D1, but D2, or normal difficulty, because it's normal Nightmare in Hell, in normal difficulty it was quite easy. So I don't understand. I even think that D4 on World Tier 2 was harder than D2, like on normal. So I don't agree here at all.
Try playing the game after level 50. 75% of your complaints are moot right after the point where you stopped. So what you're saying is 75% of my complaints were valid up until the point I stopped. They don't know they're agreeing with me. If you agree with me, then stop defending it. Imagine not even getting to the end game, making a review and thinking your opinion matters. Next time, actually play the game because you missed a ton of actual issues. What? The game is worse than I thought it was? There's some issues I didn't even notice? You guys are terrible at selling me on this end game content. I don't know what type of sales strategy this is, but it's fucking awful. I don't think you can provide a proper critique of D4 if you never played D3. So many things were already solved in D3 and they just completely ignored them when designing D4. It's embarrassing. Okay, so they solved problems in D3 and then reintroduced those problems.
Exactly my point. This is unacceptable. Again, we're talking about multiple billion company with a lot of experience, with a lot of experienced players to help with feedback, with a lot of previous installments of the franchise to help, and yet they didn't deliver. Nobody can expect a perfect game, but they didn't deliver a game where you couldn't say that the stash sucks. You couldn't say that there are certain bugs that are pretty bad, and they destroy the entire experience. They couldn't deliver a game that has compelling dungeons, because you know what? Probably you'll hate me for this, but I will compare D4 to Diablo Immortal at this point. Diablo Immortal had, in my opinion, the best dungeons ever that I've seen in Diablo game. They were amazing. There were not that many. You know that D4 has 150 dungeons. No, they're not 150, let's be real. We have probably 10 or 15 unique designs, and then everything is copy-paste. So it's not really unique. And if you ask me now to name one memorable dungeon design from Diablo 4, I would probably go for Zenith. It was kind of cool looking, but that's it. In Diablo Immortal, I have so many experiences in specific dungeons. There's dungeon on a boat, which is incredible. There is dungeon where you kill this worm Zaka. There are so many great dungeons. A dungeon with the elevator. It's King Fahir's tomb, something like this. So they didn't try hard with the dungeons. I don't need to have 200 dungeons. I need to have 30 dungeons, but I want them to be really unique. Every single time when you enter a dungeon, I will remember it. I will remember the dungeons in Diablo Immortal for a long time. I wouldn't remember even a dungeon in Diablo 4 now to say, okay, this dungeon was quite cool because this and that. The dungeons are just fillers. That's the worst part, because in Diablo 4, the dungeons are actually the end game. You want to farm dungeons, nightmare dungeons, to level up your glyphs. But the point is that those dungeons are just fillers. None of the dungeons look really good, in my opinion, and that's a problem.
Problems in D4. Again, I have no idea how Blizzard managed to gaslight so many people into agreeing that D4 is worse than previous titles, and then that is somehow acceptable. Bro has some pretty horrible takes. He didn't even make it to endgame and just played it as a story-driven game and not an ARPG. You guys legit have campaigns and stories that are on par with the best of StarCraft and Warcraft. On par with the best of Halo and Call of Duty. And you think that shit is unimportant? You think that's irrelevant? What the fuck happened to the Diablo fan base? How could any of you possibly arrive at that conclusion after Diablo 2? This is just insane to me. No wonder the games are so bad. You guys have no fucking standards whatsoever. The problem with this review is that Ackman approached...
That's actually a very valid point. I have to agree, it's a very valid point. Once a company receives hundreds of millions of pre-orders, what can you possibly do? They already got the money. So D4 wasn't a terrible game. Once again, I will rank it probably 6.5, 7 out of 10. However, it could be so much better. And one of the reasons for that is that the community really doesn't demand that much. They say, oh, there is a bug there, that's okay. There is a bug over here, that's okay. This one doesn't work, this skill doesn't work, that's okay. The dungeons look the same, that's okay. We can live with that. Take a look at Diablo 2. It was a perfect game, really a perfect game. And part of it was the fact that the story was incredible. Yes, I was doing the end game most of the time, but I will remember the story for G2 for the rest of my life. It's incredible.
D4 as a
even the cinematics,
ARPG.
The cinematics of D2 are super cool. And they said that D4 was actually the darkest Diablo. That's not true. D4 is not really comparable to D2 when it comes to the tone of the entire thing. D4 is so much lighter than D2 you cannot imagine.
Player, but then again, I thought D4 was supposed to be tailored for the casual ARPG player, which not only leaves Diablo in a weird place as an RPG, but also an ARPG. Well, that's the thing, because I'm not a casual ARPG player. I'm a single player enthusiast. I'm a lone wolf. I like to play solo and immerse myself in the world, the lore, and challenge. I love Baldur's Gate, Dark Alliance 1 and 2, Gauntlet Dark Legacy. Back in the day, you beat these games and then they were over. So the only thing to do was play them again. And that's what I did. And that's what I do today. When I beat Diablo 2, I don't grind Bale 100 times. I either play a new difficulty on the same character or start a new character entirely. But see, like, having said that, there's going to be Diablo fans that want to gatekeep the series from me because that's how I enjoy it and play it. Simply because I don't play it in the most hardcore way possible. So allow me to do a little gatekeeping of my own. I guarantee you if some of these Diablo fanboys went back and played the first game, they would lose their fucking mind. Yeah, why don't you go back to the game where every time you open a chest, there's a 33% chance that it just explodes in your face for no reason? Yeah, go back and fight the zombies on level 5 that permanently reduce your HP every time you get hit. Yeah, go back and fight those guys as a melee build. Why don't you try clicking on a random shrine that fucks up your build and takes away your stats? Yeah, go back and experience that, then we can talk about gatekeeping. The goal of modern RPGs is generally to create a fake feeling of depth so that newer gamers and non-gamers think they are playing something epic. They know hardcore gamers are going to grind it out and drop it. They also know if they can string casuals along with a system that seems deep but is actually shallow and simple, means they will play for literally ever. Couldn't have said it better myself. That sounds like a business proposition. You know what I mean? That sounds like the business model. And it's exactly how I felt the longer I played. I was like, okay, this started off really fun, but the longer I play, the more shallow it feels. Excellent comment, J-Dog. Jesus Christ, it's like looking in the mind of a complete simpleton. 4 stats on an item is too complicated. It's not the amount of stats an item changes, it's what they change, right? I don't care about something like plus 420.69% overpowered damage to a vulnerable enemy at a distance on a Monday in the month of November while tap dancing. I don't give a shit about a dumb stat like that, okay? I much prefer tangible bonuses like bonus champ.
Fair point. I kind of dislike the stats in G4, especially this with damage versus close versus damage reduction versus close. For instance, if you want to push for the Nightmare Dungeon, majority, let's say 99% of the players, they don't have any answer for the distant monster. If you want to do 100, I've never seen anybody doing, for instance, Onyx Hold. Reason being, you have a lot of banshee stuff like this, they're going to one-shot you from distance. Majority of the players have damage to close enemies. Damage reduction to close enemies, I'm sorry. So if they go to a dungeon that is pretty populated with a lot of nasty range units, Nightmare Dungeon high tier, you're going to get one-shotted and you have no answer for that. So I'll prefer to make the stats a little bit more. They can be still complicated, but not that variety of things. It's not really that great. I don't feel good with this stat system, but it's not the end of the world, let's be real.
Chance to hit or crit, increased armor, strength, vitality, bonus move speed, mana, attack speed, 5% chance of finding magic gear, you know? I feel like this is done really well in Diablo 1 and 2 and WoW. Also, side note, in Diablo 1 they have some really funny items like Tin Sword of Dyslexia, which gives you -5 dexterity. I can't wait to find the Mask of Obesity. You have to pay to identify items, by the way. So you can just you can get an item that's literally worthless. A lot of people pointed out that later areas of the map do have a base level, and in my review I made it sound like you could go anywhere at level 1 and all the enemies would be at the same level. Technically, this isn't true. However, the way that I played the game, every single quest and piece of content I experienced was at my same level. So the point essentially still stands. And then there was people saying I was over leveled for the campaign, which made no sense because the campaign was at my level. Like I didn't fucking grind the game. I would do side content and then some campaign missions and I would just go back and forth. You know, a very natural way to play, but somehow that made me over leveled without me even knowing it. Furthermore, even if you start a new character and want to go straight to Howitzer or whatever, there's no reason to, right? There are no incentives to go to these areas before you're at that level.
Yeah, that's a valid point. You just have to follow the campaign. The only exception for that is that sometimes you're going to have specific class-bound quests that will send you to a zone that is not part of the current campaign. Apart from that, there's really not a real incentive to go to specific locations, specific different areas. There is another thing, of course, if you want to farm a specific aspect. So I cannot agree 100%, let's say I partially agree. So 2 reasons: if you want to farm specific aspects for specific dungeon that's in different zone, or if you want to do the class quest for anything. For instance, if you're a druid, you want to go for a place which is far away from the current campaign zone. So yeah.
You only go when the campaign takes you there, right? In Dark Souls 1, you can go down to New Londo Ruins and grab a Firekeeper Soul. It's a nice early game strat. There's an incentive to go into an area that you're not supposed to be in yet. And that's the big difference. That's the type of world design I'm talking about. Like, if there were tougher dungeons in Fractured Peaks that offered players alluring rewards, you know, those players might consider doing these tougher dungeons before they're at...
Yeah, but you can still get the aspect that you need early game, so I don't really agree here.
...the same level for it. Like, that's the type of dynamic player choice I'm talking about. And level scaling just completely removes all of that. So I stand by all my points on how bad scaling is, but I wanted to clear up that technicality. I knew there was something fishy here. Played D1 and 2, but skipped 3. Now, how many times have we heard any of these D2 nostalgia crackheads have a sane argument about why D4 is bad, except for, it isn't the same. Not once. I don't know, man, you kind of hit the nail right there. Like, they are crackheads, because they've been playing the game for over 20 years. So if I were making a game where I wanted people to play a long time, that's the demographic of people I would consult for input. They are crackheads. You'd think their opinions on endgame content would matter most. You didn't actually put enough time or effort in the game to understand it. Overall, it's disappointing to see you post a review of a game you barely got into, then gave up and made a bad review. What piece of media do you tell people you need to dump 30 hours into this before it gets good? What piece of media? This is...
Again, that's a valid point, but once again, every single time when I tried a new game, and I already went through that early in the video, but there were so many times I was into the game, and I was like, okay, I'm losing it. Why is this game so good? Why people recommend this game? And then I'm going to ask here and there. Some people are going to give me certain answers, and then it will dawn on me, and the game will suddenly be better. So, but again, it's a problem. He's right again. His problem with the game that it doesn't really convey this message to you itself. So if you have to get this message somewhere, somebody to convince you to keep playing, only for you reaching that part where the game gets good, it's the game's fault as well.
It's like saying you watched all of Dragon Ball and you barely got into Dragon Ball. You didn't watch Z or GT. You know, it's just fucking stupid. Anyone who doesn't like Diablo 3 doesn't deserve to rate Diablo games. Anyone who doesn't like Wanda Gamelon doesn't deserve to rate Zelda games. It is not bad at all. You are just a tool. Damn, give it some time to add more. No, Rob Farr, they said this about Overwatch 2. No, you're falling into their trap again.
That's a good point in my opinion. Diablo 4 is a game in its infancy with all the problems it has, so I would recommend everybody who played the game, didn't like the game, quit the game for now, to come back in a couple of months, probably season 2, 3, and test the game again. I think a lot of things will be added. I'll give an example with Diablo 3. When Diablo 3 launched, I played it for a couple of months, I stopped playing it. The thing is, it wasn't really that great. I didn't like it, but Diablo 3 got much better, and unfortunately it was kind of too late. Still though, it was much better, and lately the game became really, really good. And I hope Blizzard is going to follow the same thing with Diablo 4, but faster, so Diablo 4 can become better much, much faster.
Rob Farr, don't! Rob Farr, give me your other hand, Rob Farr, I can't hold you!
I can reach it. I can reach it.
Your channel is like that guy that goes into a party, stirs up a ruckus between everyone, and then leaves to the corner of the room to watch hell ensue and everyone argue while he eats chips enjoying himself. Good luck being that guy. Your takes have as much thought behind them as your blue and yellow swirly tattoo. This is definitely one of the best roasts I've ever received. Allow me to counter with one of my own personal favorites, Danny Dome. It must have been a sad day when you slithered out of the abortion bucket. I disagree with a bunch of stuff you said in this video. Strength was meaningless in Diablo 2 as well. Strength literally increases your damage in Diablo 2. What are you talking about? I don't think there is a way to have an open world game like this where every single NPC has a meaningful backstory and dialogue. Then don't make the game open world. Not every single NPC, of course some are just gonna be in the background, but like, Witcher 3, anybody?
I don't really agree that NPCs are so freaking important, but he has a point that NPCs should be somewhat rememberable. Okay. For instance, I all remember from D2, I remember Deckard Cain, I remember Akara, I remember Charcy. So yeah, there are definitely characters and NPCs in G2 that you remember, and this thing completely missed in Diablo 4, so that's a valid point, even though I don't think that it's the most important thing in the game.
Buddy, Knights of the Old Republic? Anyone?
Oh my god,
anyone?
KOTOR was
People are not going to sit down and read the
ever.
backstory of every single blacksmith in the game. Well then, don't fucking write it like it's a codex. Present it in an interesting way, maybe. Maybe tie it to a quest or something. Oh, I don't know. Level scaling seems like it's necessary for couch co-op. Getting rid of it probably does more harm than good. This is one thing I do want to point out, that it's cool that you can play Diablo 4 with someone in the same room, but if level scaling is necessary for couch co-op, then why is it turned on when I'm playing solo? Show me your NM 100 plus in hardcore and Uber in hardcore, then we talk. If not, your opinion is suck.
Suck my dick!
But I have an interesting take on this one. So far I didn't do Uber Lilith because it's an intense fight, takes a lot of time, and everything that I'm going to get in the end is a title. I don't really care about the title, so I'm going to kill her eventually, but not now. Once again, even players with Woodiju, it took them 200 hours. So no, thank you. I'm not going to do a Lilith for now, even though they're good builds. There was a build lately with Tornado and Shred, so you can basically one-shot her, but I was too lazy to farm the gold so I can respec back the Tornado. I was like, yeah, whatever, I'm going to kill her eventually later. So I'm saying that in game like Diablo 4, there should be things like doing dungeons, Dungeon 100 or Uber Lilith just for the sake of doing it. However, currently there are two objectives, Nightmare Dungeon 100 and Uber Lilith. Both don't give you anything, and that's a little bit of a problem. If they do at least one of those things to give you something, let's say every single time when you kill Lilith, there is a 20% chance to get one of those unique Uber things. That's going to be better, or even 10% chance, or even 5% chance. Make sure that people have other incentive, because person like me is not incentivized by just killing her for the sake of I say, hey, yeah, I killed Lilith. I don't really care about that. Same thing with Nightmare Dungeon 100. You do it once, you get the title, and then you're done with it. But the point is, why don't you keep doing it so that if they actually make sure that there is a chance you get good item drops from Nightmare Dungeon 100. So in either one of those, in my opinion, there should be something more than a title. And at this point, there isn't. So you're getting penalized by trying to crawl in Nightmare Dungeon 100, getting really regular drops, while a person doing, let's say, Nightmare Dungeon 40 to, let's say, 10 Nightmare Dungeons 40 that time is getting much more loot. So you see where I'm going? In my opinion, there is a good thing that there are very challenging fights. Certain people want to do it, despite the fact that they don't give you anything. But at the same time, there must be a reward system that scales with difficulty. And this thing actually lacks in Diablo 4. Again, make sure you drop something, or make sure that drops are increasingly good the higher you rank in Nightmare Dungeons, so that at least one of those things can give something extra. At least at a certain point, you're getting penalized for going hard in Nightmare Dungeons because they don't give you anything.
Quite a few comments of people saying, well, if it's so easy, why didn't you play hardcore? Okay, you're conflating difficulty with punishment. There's no fundamental difference between playing normal and hardcore. The only difference is that if you fuck up, you can't play that character anymore. It's not more challenging, it's more punishing. First thing you complain about is being online constantly. Just another offline cheater trying to mod and hack their game? What the fuck? Sounds like this is his first Diablo game. So many players who have no idea how a Diablo game works complaining to get it changed. Yeah, D4 was my first Diablo games. These ones don't exist.
But the thing is, even if this is the case, what is the problem? You know, this game wants to attract new players. You don't expect D4 to be played only by previous players that played Diablo 2, 1, 2, 3, or Immortal, or even all of them. It doesn't matter. The point is, you want this franchise to increase, right? So you cannot disregard the opinions of other players, even if you agree that they never played Diablo game. I mean, even if this is the case, actually their opinion is more valuable in my opinion, because it gives you another completely different perspective of the game. You cannot disregard that. So you cannot say Diablo 4 is only for Diablo 2 players, or Diablo 3 players, or players who played any Diablo game before and played it good. You cannot say that. Actually, this game should be for everybody. Everybody should like it, even though that's impossible. But let's say many people should find something in this game that makes them happy, right? Alright, I believe this video is to the end, so I'm going to end it here. And I hope you had fun. Please let me know what you think about it, and see you next time. Take care.
Perfect.